Hello everyone, my name is Christian, welcome back to my hobby blog. I am so excited today because I have finished Marineford from One Piece. That giant arc, 17 episodes, so much epic battles, some really crazy lore drops were given. I was shocked through most of this arc, and I also went ahead and watched through Postwar, because I've been sick this entire week. It's Friday now that I'm filming, and I have just had this nasty cold all week long, so I haven't had any motivation to do videos, but I have been doing a lot of One Piece watching, and so I'm very happy to say that I'm now finished with both arcs. I'm now in the time skip. There's a 2-year time skip that's happening, and I'm so excited to be where I am, because I feel like I crossed a major milestone within One Piece, because ever since I started, a lot of people said, oh, just wait till the time skip. You know, the time skip, once the time skip happens, like, everything after is just, like, pure gold, is what I heard. And I heard that the series didn't really start until, like, chapter 600 or 500 in the manga. And as I was getting into those chapter counts, and getting into Thriller Bark and beyond, because that's around 500, I believe. And ever since then, I've just been really, really loving the series. I love the characters, I love the themes, I love the locations, I love the lore, I love the epic grand scale, I love the powers, I love the devil fruits, I love the humorous moments. I just love this show so much. I love One Piece, and I think these two arcs, but specifically Marineford, I just feel as if, like, I'm now part of, like, the crew of One Piece fans, because I feel like I'm definitely a One Piece fan now that I have sort of cross this milestone, cross this goal of mine, because my goal was always to finish at least Egghead, the most recently finished completed arc. I want to be finished by the end of June. That was always my goal, but the time skip was sort of my milestone for getting that sort of pacing in my head. And it's not June yet, and I still have a 200 episodes or so. So I think that's about 20 episodes a week that I gotta watch, which I think is doable, but I'm also still unemployed, so I'm still interviewing and trying to find a job, so that's the only reason I've been able to go through One Piece so quickly, is because I don't have a job, and I've just been doing a lot of One Piece and reading in order to fill that time. And this arc, Marineford, is the longest arc since Skypiea, I want to say, or maybe even Alabasta, because most of the arcs are around 10 episodes, and Marineford, opening it up, it's 17. So it's much longer than a lot of these arcs that I'm used to. So I buckled right in, and right from the get-go, we have Jinbei revealing to Luffy, because Luffy didn't know this. I think we, the viewers, knew. But Jinbei was one of the warlords, and Luffy is shocked by this. And we also are revealed that Buggy was actually part of Goldie Roger's crew. And I didn't remember that, if that was already given before in the series, but I thought that was a big bombshell for me. And I really love that, because Buggy, as I've said in past videos, is one of my favorite characters or villains, I guess, of Luffy's. I don't even know if he's a villain anymore, because he's working really well with Luffy and everyone else. But it was so fun to get that idea, or to get that fact, because there's just so many questions I have now, and I can't wait to see if there's any more info that I don't know about Buggy and Goldie Roger. I want to know how the relationship was, or if there even was a relationship, a friendship, whatever. And we're also told that Ace's mother, Rouge, held Ace within her body for 20 months, which is very interesting because that's not something you can control usually. And so I have an idea that Rouge has a devil fruit of some sort. We didn't really get any details about that specific detail, about how she was able to keep Ace within her body for 20 months. But that's really interesting. I don't know I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how she did that, but I thought that was really interesting. And it ends up that it's actually Goldiwaja who is the father of Ace. And it's not Dragon or... Yeah, it's not Dragon. So Luffy and Ace are not actually brothers. And we get this a lot in Postwar, a lot of the details surrounding Luffy's and Ace's relationship together. All of that is explored in Postwar, which I will get into my complaints about that when I get there. But basically, after she escapes this island, the Marines put out a big bounty to track down any pregnant woman and basically make sure that it's not Goldiwaja's baby. Because if his blood is allowed to live on, then there's going to eventually be a lot of pirates banding around this person. And the Marines do not want that. So they set out a bounty, and they have a pretty harrowing sequence where you have Marines just barging into people's houses looking for pregnant women. And it's just really nasty. But they show up to Marineford, and I'm talking about Luffy and Jinbei and Boa's there. Everyone's there selling to Marineford. They're not really sure how they're going to get in, and that's when somebody opens the gate. And they are able to sell right in, and that's when everything really begins, is when they get past the Gates of Justice, I believe they're called, when they actually start sailing into Marineford, because that's where Ace is going to be executed, and there's a lot going on with that. There's a deadline to get to, Ace before that deadline, because everyone wants to save Ace, and the Marines are just sort of taking the time with it, and they're really basking in the glory of having Ace and being able to execute him. We revisit this over and over in this arc, but there's always discussions how the Marines have to keep up this mirage of control all around the world, and they're televising his execution. So we have cameras televising what's going on the island, and they're trying so hard to control the cameras in a way that it makes them look like they're winning the entire time. And I thought that was really interesting how they were doing that. And eventually Buggy is able to take over those cameras and start showing what's actually happening. But then the Marines are able to take back the cameras because of everything that's going on. But I don't want to go too fast. But I just wanted to stress the importance that this is being televised. So the entire world is watching. We see Sabaody archipelago and its inhabitants watching the TV and watching, and they are really nervous. They're like, oh no, like, we hope the Marines win, we hope the pirates lose, and it's a really tense situation. And we also have underwater ships that show up, which I thought was a lot of fun. And it's the Moby Dick ship, I believe. My phone says Moby Duck, but I don't know if that's autocorrect. But Mako is the captain of this ship, Marco Polo, and it ends up that he's in Whitebeard's fleet, because Whitebeard shows up very quickly after Mako shows up, and he's able to use the Earthquake powers, the Earthquake Devil Fruit. And Whitebeard, I was mildly interested in him before this arc. I wanted to know a whole lot more about him. I wanted to know a lot more about his powers. And oh my god, do we get that? I absolutely loved everything with Whitebeard this arc. Seeing him, like Dalinar and Oathbringer, like take his arms to the side and grab two spaces of time or pieces of time and space, and he causes like these great big earthquakes, and the oceans are weaving and bobbing and like all this stuff, undulating. It's doing so much, and you see Marineford breaking apart and columns, and it's just crazy the powers that Whitebeard has. He is so powerful, and he fights like everybody on this island, all of the admirals. He fights Mihawk. That's probably my favorite part, is when he's fighting with Mihawk. But he also just does so much. I'm skipping ahead, sorry, but we do get a really fun flashback of Ace meeting Shanks and somebody else. And that's sort of to set up how they were introduced to Whitebeard, because Ace is just a little kid at this point, and he finds Shanks and is like, hey, I want to go meet Whitebeard. And Shanks is like, wow, this kid, the confidence on this kid, like, is incredible. Like, okay, fine, we'll take you to Whitebeard, but you'll probably be killed by him. And he shows up and is taken into Whitebeard's crew. And Whitebeard and Ace spend time together for a few years in the crew, and Ace has to leave. And so we're given sort of that gap between him leaving Luffy when they're growing up and to when we see him again as part of Whitebeard's crew. We finally have that timeline filled in for the most part. But so during this, he reveals that he ate the Tremor Devil Fruit, which allows him to create earthquakes. And so he causes these two giant, like, tsunamis to occur, and it's about to crash onto Marineford. But then we have one of the admirals, Aokiji, show up, and he freezes it. And so we have this awesome visual for, like, a good amount of the arc, where you have these two waves and all of Marineford, like, right here. And it's frozen, and it's not until, I believe it's Luffy, when he's riding up on the frozen... no, okay, here's what happens. So I'm so excited to talk about this that I'm just skipping all over the place. But so Luffy and the crew, when all of this fighting is going on, and Whitebeard uses his earthquake powers, these tsunamis really suck in all of the ships, and they're going up this really impossibly high elevation, and it's about to crash down, as waves do. And Luffy and the rest of the crew, they're at the top and they're looking down, and then it freezes, and then the tips of the icebergs, basically, or the waves, the ice waves, I should say, break off, and they fall straight down onto Marineford, but thankfully in the water, so the ship doesn't break, and they land safely. But once this happens, then we have Mihawk with his giant sword, Takanome, I believe is his Japanese translation. He finally pulls out his giant cross sword thing, and he slashes it down, and we've gotten one look of this long as time ago on Barati, I believe, that arc, when we meet Sanji and Zoro is fighting with Mihawk, and it's obvious Mihawk is just testing Zoro, seeing what he is. And Mihawk attacks Whitebeard, and one of the pirates that Whitebeard is with, named Jozu, he comes in, and he has eaten the diamond fruit. So diamonds are not able to be cut by any material, really, except other diamonds. So I love that sort of like logic that Oda used in order to block Mihawk's attack, because Jozu just sort of runs in at the last second and turns himself into diamonds. And the green blade ray, I guess, bounces off of him, goes into the sky, and you see the clouds just like split immediately. And it's really cool. I really love seeing all of these powers being shown. But Kizaru is fighting with Mako, who I mentioned earlier. And Mako turns into a giant blue phoenix, which I was not expecting. That was really, really fucking cool. And someone mentions that he has eaten the mythical zone fruit, which is the first time I've even heard of this. And it ends up that this is a very rare devil fruit. So I don't know where he got this. I don't know where any of these people get any of the devil fruits. I've heard that they're all in the New World, but I haven't really gotten any details about them themselves. I haven't seen anybody pick up a devil fruit on screen in a very long time, and I really want some more details about that. But while this is all happening, because there's so many fights going on at the same time, there's a reason why all of these fights end up being like 17 episodes long in One Piece, because I do use One Piece. I don't watch the unabridged because I don't have all that much time in my life, but I'll do the One Piece abridged. But during all this fighting, we have all these giants who are standing around, and they're trying to sort of gauge the strength of everybody, because the Marines are so confident in their abilities to defend Marineford that, like, sort of the hierarchy of power that is going on, it takes a little bit of time for some of the people to get involved in the fight, because they don't realize sort of how quickly the fight can go from them winning to the pirates winning. And we see a bunch of giants, part of the Marines, that then join the fight, and Jozu throws a giant circle of ice at them, which I thought was really fun. And then Sakazuki uses an eruption power to break the ice, because it's like this big circle of ice that he creates with his diamonds that he cuts into a perfect circle. He picks it up and then just throws it at the Marines. And then Sakazuki uses his eruption power, his magma power, to break the ice, and it rains down meteors, like flaming meteors down onto everybody. And during this, little Oz Jr. shows up and is like, hey, I'm here to fight now, because he's part of Whitebeard's crew, which I had no idea about. I didn't even know that Oz had even a son. So this was amazing. I love Oz from Thriller Box. So I was very happy to see that there's Oz Jr. is just like King Kong and King Kong Jr. or son of King Kong or son of Godzilla. Like, I just love all of that. And he shows up and he starts fighting the Marines. Boa Hancock joins the fight, and she sort of plays both sides because she loves Luffy, we know this, and she also doesn't really want to let the Marines win either, because she wants Luffy to win. I mean, she loves Luffy. She's always just really focused on him. Anytime he's on screen and she is nearby, she just blushes. She gets the kawaii eyes. Like, she just loves Luffy. And so she always distracts the other Marines, turns them into stone. It's just so fun to see Boa doing her part to make the Marines that much weaker. But we also get a flashback of Ace making Oz Jr. a hat, because Oz Jr. is with Whitebeard, as I said. And so he and Ace have a very close friendship, which I really enjoy. And Ace is like, hey, like, I want to make you a hat that I learned how to make in Wano. And that's the big sort of like reed sombrero, I think. But Oz Jr. is like, I fucking love this hat. So he's like, I'm best friends with Ace for the rest of my life. I was really happy to hear a mention of Wano, because I know that's a really long an epic arc that I've heard about. But we got a samurai from Wano during Thriller Bark, I believe, and that was really fun. But Doflamingo shows up, and he chops Oz's leg off, which I did not like. And then Moria, the awful yet very funny jailer from Impel Down, he creates a giant, like, shadow spear, is what I'm going to call it. He creates a giant shadow spear and impales Oz as he is falling after his leg is cut off. And I did not like that. I really wanted Oz to make more of an impact. But it ends up that he does make a giant impact because Whitebeard's pirates realize that he fell perfectly in order to turn himself into a bridge for everybody else to go into Marineford now. And that's sort of the big sacrifice he makes. And so then we see Kobe. He's at Marineford. And we haven't really gone much with Kobe this entire series, ever since he got split up from Luffy very early in the arcs. But we also got, like, the adventures of Kobe Meppo, I believe, which was, like, a really small filler arc. I'm going to call it filler because I don't really remember anything that was important from that arc. But I really wish Kobe was in the story more. And not in such a lame way, because he is such, like, a Marine wannabe, I guess, that he sort of just does nothing. And I was very happy that Luffy, when he was running towards Ace and trying to get to Ace, this is a bit later in the arc, but he punches Kobe straight in the face. Doesn't even give him time to react to Luffy being there. Luffy just punches him in the face and moves on. And I thought that was a really funny moment while watching it, because I was like, well, that's what you get. That's what you get for wanting to be a Marine, because Kobe had the chance to join Luffy, and he chose not to, and chose to align himself with the Marines. And so I'm really hoping that we get an arc soon, at some point, I guess before the end of the series, where we get Kobe deciding not to follow the Marines, because I think Kobe is a good person at the end of the day, and I would really like him to not be a Marine. He doesn't have to be a pirate, but I don't want him to be a Marine. So I was very happy to see Luffy just punch him in the face. I don't know if that makes me mean or not, but yeah. A pirate by the name of Whitey Bay shows up, and she is called the Ice Witch, and she uses her ship to break the wall that is separating, I guess, Oz. So it's like Oz falls, and there's like a plaza courtyard full of Marines. And then there's like another layer that has like a wall between the Marines and the Admirals up here. So she uses her ship to break that. And then we have Luffy and his crew fall out of the sky. So all of this happens and they fall out of the sky. Then Jinbei fights Moria while Luffy goes to Ace. Because Luffy is trying to reunite with Ace. Get him the key to the handcuffs that Boa gave Luffy. I think it's Luffy or Boa that gives Luffy that key. And so he gets the key finally for the sea stone, not gauntlets, but bracelets that prevent devil fruit powers. And so once he's able to get that key to Ace, then he will be able to use his powers, and they'll, gang up, and they'll fight the Marines, and they'll run, and they'll escape, and they'll become part of a crew, and they'll fucking kill everybody. I don't know. That's not obviously what happens at the end of this arc. I don't want to go into spoilers just yet, because it's a big moment. But Luffy runs into Smoker during this, while Jinbei is fighting Moria, and Tashigi is there as well. And so Luffy fights him a little bit, but Mihawk then starts fighting Luffy. And Mihawk slices the ice wall in half, and it falls on a bunch of people. And after that, or after a lot of fighting, there's this guy named Squado who I don't like. I don't like this character at all. I thought he was such a waste of time anytime he was on screen. But he's like one of the pirates of Whitebeard. And he's just been kind of hanging around Whitebeard this entire fight. Whitebeard has just been standing menacingly like this the entire episode with his arms crossed, just watching the fighting, doing nothing. Except cause that big earthquake and the tsunamis. But, yeah. So, while he's standing there being menacing, Squado just backstabs Whitebeard. For no reason at all. Ends up that he made a deal with the Marines to do this. And Sakazuki ended up being the one to convince Squado into betraying Whitebeard. So, what ends up happening is that Whitebeard reveals his mission, which is to make Ace the Pirate King by sacrificing all his commanders in exchange for freedom for the pirates. Maybe that was Squado who did that. So there's a little bit of a confusion. I'm confused about this as well, so please let me know. But I thought that it was Whitebeard who had made the decision to betray everybody, and that's why Squado wanted to betray Whitebeard. But maybe it was actually Squado who wanted Ace to be Pirate King, but that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. Please correct me. But anyways, the ice walls sort of become the boundaries for all the pirates, and sort of becomes like a funneling source for the Marines in terms of how to funnel all of the pirates through this tiny little area and kill them all. That's the Marines' goal. And it's around that time that Whitebeard finally joins the fight. And he blocks the giant sword, one of the giant Marines, who is like a skyscraper tall. I fucking love the giants, by the way. I love giants in any sort of media, especially fantasy and sci-fi. But I especially love how in this series, there's just a race of giants that exists and no one questions it. They're not really utilized that much. I can't wait to go to the island of Elbaf. Usopp needs to get there. I know he was talking with Brogy about going there. But I really want more with the giants, and these giants just made me wish I had more. So I just want to mention that because, I mean, giants are fucking cool. But, the Marines try to execute Ace around this point when Whitebeard joins the fight, but Crocodile intervenes, which was a lot of fun. Fun to see him again. Luffy fights his way even closer to Ace, but a new ship from underwater shows up, and at that moment, Oz Jr. pushes that ship into the base. He's still alive somehow, but he uses this final action like it was D&D, and he pushes the ship into the base, which was awesome. And that's when Whitebeard is able to jump into the plaza. And Aokiji and Juzo fight, while Whitebeard fights with Sakazuki, and Momonga is fighting Luffy until he's too weak to fight. But then, suddenly, Ivankov shows up and gives Luffy more hormones to revive himself, because Luffy is just completely wiped out by this point of the fight. We are about halfway through the arc at this point, and Luffy has used Gear 2 and Gear 3, and he hasn't had any rest. He hasn't had his long rest. So he is not doing well, and this is the time when he punches Kobe in the face. And I love that. Excuse me, I'm still a bit sniffly. I hope I don't look nasty. But Luffy watches as Ace is about to be executed. And you see the swords almost connect with his neck. And that's when a sound wave erupts. And it ends up that Luffy used the Conqueror's Haki, because we get a big, speech about it. And it's awesome. This is the first time that we've seen him really use it. But it was really nice to see him use it to save Ace. That was such a great moment. I loved it. But I'll explain later. I wish that was enough. But yeah, so from that moment on, we see Sengoku turn into a giant Buddha. And this is the time that Luffy is able to climb up the ramp, and he knocks out Garp, which was quite a shock, because that's his grandfather, don't forget. And then we have number 3 appearing from disguise as one of the gods executing Ace. And he creates a new key in order to save Ace, so Luffy did not get the key from Boa, but actually from number 3. So Luffy frees Ace, and I was so happy to see this. And he explodes in firepower because he's Fire Fist Ace. And he teams up with Luffy and he beats up a bunch of Marines. It's a really epic moment. And we have a really awesome elemental fight between Ace and Aokiji. And we have Whitebeard saying, okay, Ace is freed. Let's go. It's time to go to the new world and kind of rest up and protect our territory. And so while he's telling everybody this, he uses his earthquake powers in order to destroy the island, basically. All the buildings are falling. You see the water, pushing up a lot, flooding, and Buggy is live streaming at this moment, and we see a lot of people acting shocked and just being shocked that the Marines are being kicked back and beaten. And so all of the Marines try to shut down the stream from that point on. And we see Inazuma creating a bridge to Ace for Luffy. So after that, I have my notes very not well written because I'm writing these as I watch it. So I try to pause it, write it down as succinctly as I can, but sometimes I miss details. So I apologize for that. But on point 15, as you can see, there's a lot of notes here for this arc. So the next thing that happens is that Sakazuki mocks Whitebeard and Ace. Mocks Whitebeard and Ace gets offended, so he demands that he take it back. And Sakazuki then lunges for Luffy. But it's at this moment that we see Ace block the attack that was going to kill Luffy. And he blocks it with his own body. And we see Sakazuki's hand go right through Ace. And we see Ace's Viva card float up and dramatically burn out. And just dust or ash rains away. And I was shocked. I haven't mentioned this too much. I mentioned it in past videos and book reviews and book discussions with people, but I feel like I'm always spoiled about something. And this was one of the big spoilers that I'm so happy it was not spoiled for me. Because had I known that Ace was going to die at this point of the story, I would never have been invested in his character, because I feel like we haven't really gotten any info about Ace. We don't really know anything about him. We've seen him a few times throughout this arc, but there really isn't much that I don't know. I don't feel as if I've had much to enjoy. I haven't had much time to get to know Ace. And so I was really disappointed by how little of him we got before this arc. But then the very next arc, Postwar, is sort of like a filler arc, in my opinion. Because it tells you everything about Ace's backstory. And I was so disappointed that we got that after his death. Had we gotten this peppered throughout all of the arcs, or even just at the beginning of this arc, maybe it would have been to easy to guess that he was going to die if we got that sooner. I don't know. But I was a little disappointed that we got the death of Ace a lot sooner than I was expecting. I don't know. I love that moment that he sacrificed himself for Luffy, but I really wanted more, and more of his character. I wanted to know more about him. And yes, I do know a whole lot more about him as a kid, but I wanted to know a lot more about him, like, in Whitebeard's crew. And we're not really getting that at this point. And unless we get a lot more later about his time, like if, I don't know, Jinbei is talking to Luffy and just telling him everything, we get this great big flashback. Unless we get that, I feel like we're not going to really get anything with Ace ever again. And that really saddens me, because he's a character I was really interested in. So, but we have a really powerful moment when Ace falls over and Luffy just screams in agony. And before Sakazuki kills Luffy while Luffy is screaming, Whitebeard appears from out of nowhere. He flies in and he slams his Sakazuki's face into the ground very hard, and I loved it. You see his face like grinding against the ground, and the ground is like cracking, and like each layer of the ground, like his face is just going through each layer, and I loved it. That was really fun. But out of nowhere, we have a mysterious crime unit show up, and it's led by this guy named Sen Huan Wolf, who we've seen before, and is revealed to be the Blackbeard Pirates. And that's when Jinbei grabs Luffy while everyone's distracted and leaves. He just starts running out of the way, and that's when we get Blackbeard fighting Whitebeard with his black hole / darkness fruit, and reveals that he's part of Whitebeard's crew. I wrote that down. It feels weird, but okay, here's what we get. So we actually get a flashback of Whitebeard and Gold Roger talking about Raftel, the island. And it's around this time that Whitebeard loudly announces that the One Piece is real. And that really angers Sengoku and all the Marines, because him revealing that basically stops up an entire new, pirate era, because a lot of people had sort of given up on the One Piece. It's been a few years since Gold Roger was killed. So it's really not a good idea for the Marines to have this fact out. And this is live streamed by Buggy to the rest of the world. So they really want the streams to go down now. And so it's during this time that Whitebeard is seemingly defeated by Blackbeard. And he's put in this like shroud of darkness by Blackbeard. And Blackbeard is like, oh, just you wait, like, you haven't seen the last of him. So I was like, oh no. I was like, what's going to happen? And Blackbeard ends up taking his devil fruit powers, taking Whitebeard's power of earthquakes. And he's able to use both of these powers now. And I have no idea how he was able to do that. I hope we get a lot more details about that later. But Blackbeard is able to do this, and he's like, hey, I'm now super powerful. This is going to be my era. Last era was Whitebeard. This era is mine now, is Blackbeard's. And so Sengoku sneak attacks as the Big Buddha, while Jinbei is punched straight through by Aokiji, but his heart is missed, so Jinbei is not killed immediately. And Crocodile comes in and helps move Luffy and Jinbei away when Buggy catches them, and his crew worships him for doing so, which is a really funny joke that is sort of repeated throughout all of the arcs, is that Buggy just sort of lucks out and gaining the respect of his crew. And I really, really love that. It's just really fun. But Trafalgar Law shows up, and I'm a big fan of this guy, even though I don't know anything about him. But he shows up and he helps Luffy. Because last time that we saw him was at Sabaody, when he teams up with Luffy. So that was really fun. But Kobe tries to get everybody to stop fighting. He tells everyone, stop fighting! But Sakazuki is like, oh, fuck you. Like, I'm going to kill you. You know, you defector of the Marines. And he comes in and tries to kill him. I thought Kobe was going to die. I was going to be really, really mad if he was going to die. Because, again, I want that, you know, redemption arc for him. But Shanks is there, and he blocks the hit. Where did Shanks come from? I was really happy to see Shanks. I'm a big fan of Shanks. But what's really interesting is that the last time we heard about Shanks is that he was across the world fighting Kaido, one of the emperors of the New World. How the hell did he get here so fast? Very interesting. And then Shanks gives Buggy like a treasure map, and he's like, follow this, bye, and he leaves. And I'm like, what does this mean? Like, what are you doing, Shanks? So Trafalgar operates on Luffy while Kiji is trying to freeze the submarine. That's how they're getting out of Marineford, Shanks and everyone else. Boa Hancock sets the Marines to chase after them. Mihawk refuses to fight Shanks. That's really interesting. Sengoku declares the war over, and he tries to heal the survivors. Okay, and that is Marineford. That was a lot. My voice is really shot right now. But I think I can say with 100% confidence that this is my favorite arc. I love this arc. This was fucking incredible. It was like 9.7 out of 10. There were little things here and there I wish were done differently. Again, I wish the post-war arcs was done before. Or at least the flashbacks for Ace was done before. But, okay, so on to post-war. So, the first sort of big reveal in this arc is that we finally get all 4 of the emperors, like, names given. And it is Whitebeard, he's no longer alive, obviously. Shanks, Kaido, and this is the new one, Big Mom. Don't know who that is. Can't wait to meet her, though. It was really nice for the show to give us all 4 of the names, because I was going a little crazy there. I mean, like, I know 3 of them. Who's the 4th one? So it was really nice to finally get that. We get a new town called Food Vaulton, and that is where Whitebeard is at. That's sort of like one of his home bases. So we get like a little scene with that, with the villagers being like, where's Whitebeard? We heard he died. What's going to happen to us? And Trafalgar Law reveals to Luffy that he has him stable, or doesn't reveal to Luffy, but he reveals to people in his crew that he has Luffy stable, but there's no guarantee of survival. And Jinbei is worried for him, and Boa decides to shelter him at the Island of Woman. And so that's where they're going to stay for a while. And so we get a scene of Blackbeard, and this is sort of like a flashback when he was down at Impel Down level 6. But he's talking with all the prisoners down there, saying like, hey, y'all should go fight each other. I'll stand back. Y'all kill each other, and whoever survives, you can join my crew. And I thought that was a really funny way for him to beef up his crew and his power, because as we know, level 6 is where the baddest of the bad are. And that's where the Marines want the most powerful of the pirates. And so the Marines want that covered up, that Blackbeard basically just took all the best villains and hired them onto his crew. And we get another scene of the Marines, but this time it's Doflamingo, and he sees Moria defeated on the ground. And he's asking Doflamingo, like, hey, can you help me? Like, it'd be really nice if you could help me heal. And Doflamingo says, actually, it'd be better for you and for the Marines especially if we find out that, like, hey, Moria died during the Summit War. And it's better to know that he died at the Summit War than it is knowing that he failed as a warlord. So Doflamingo kills him. And then we are introduced to a new villain, a Brownbeard, and he takes over the town of Foodvalton. So that's very interesting. Not sure what's going to happen with that. So the crew and Ivankov set off for Kamabaka Kingdom. So we're not going to see them for quite a while. Luffy wakes up and demands to see Ace. And from there on until like the final episode of Postwar, we get a really long and pretty nice flashback arc all about Luffy and Ace meeting and becoming brothers, because they're not actually blood brothers, but brothers who shared sake. And I really loved watching this scene, like, as a filler, I should say. It's not really filler, because it's very important, and it was nice and slow. But I think after Marineford, I just really wanted more, action. Well, maybe not more action, but more, like, big story moments. Like, I don't know. But it was really nice to sort of take our time and get all of the sort of relationship building between Ace and Luffy. And also this character of Sabo, who I thought was really funny, and he was fun. But I don't know. I didn't really care about him at the end of the day, and he ended up dying at the end of the arc. So didn't really spend much time with him, but he will be missed. I did feel bad that he died, but I don't know. I just wanted more from that arc. The character Blue Jam was interesting. I really liked the setting of Grey Terminal. It really reminded me of the arc of Nico Robins about O'Hara. And I think they even make a reference to O'Hara with Nico Robin. And we see them bombing and burning down the Grey Terminal. And no one really cares. The family of Sabo are royals. And he really cares. And Ace and Luffy are being told by other pirates that Sabo actually doesn't care about them. And they don't know what to think. So we have this really high drama, high emotion section where they're really trying to reunite. And they meet back up, and Blackbeard is there. Oh no, it's not Blackbeard, it's Dragon and Ivankov show up, and they fight against Blue Jam, and that was so much fun. It was so nice to see Dragon, and especially Ivankov, because I have a lot of questions about Ivankov and the background, because I don't really know like anything about them pre-Hormone Devil Fruit. I would love to know a lot more about Ivankov, the person, because I love their powers. I love the way that they support Luffy and all of the rest of the crew. And, like, I just want more. Like, I want Ivankov to join the crew, even though I know that Ivankov is with Whitebeard. Or with Dragon, I should say, because they're allied. But yeah, that was really interesting because Dragon is the father of Luffy, so it makes me wonder if Ivankov knows a lot more about Luffy than we previously thought. That's a really interesting question that popped in my head when Ivankov showed up in this arc, especially with Dragon, because that's a very clear signal to me that they are connected. Not just because of the current day stuff, but Luffy and Ivankov have been connected this entire time. So I'm very curious to know what history is back though. But we get a appearance of a celestial dragon, which was a lot of fun. Sabo sees them, and the celestial dragon sees Sabo sailing away, and Sabo just wants to be a pirate, so he's sailing away, and then the celestial dragon like bombs him, and I was just like, oh, it's like there goes Sabo. So this was sort of my issue with this arc being shown first and then Marineford, is that a lot of these characters I knew were going to die by the end of this arc, and it would have been really nice to have gotten all this information first and then the deaths, just like in Last of Us. My issues with season 2 with that. But it's funny because during this scene with the celestial dragon, we do get an appearance by Zoro when he's a kid training, and we don't even get dialogue with him. He just shows up and he's training, has the sword in his mouth and the 2 swords in his hands, and he's going at it, and then we cut away. That was really funny. Would have been nice to gotten more of that, but we go back to the present day, and Garp tells everyone about the post-war world and how it will go from now on, now that Whitebeard is dead. And he gets all beat up by Dadan for failing to save Ace. We get a scene with Shanks and Marco discussing how Ace is very similar to Gold Roger. Amazing scenes. I love all this. I love anytime we get more details about these characters and the relationships with all these other really powerful characters. And then we go back to Luffy and Jinbei, and we get a really emotional scene of Jinbei telling Luffy on what to focus on, and to focus on what remains instead of focusing on loss. And that's really good advice, because Luffy has lost a lot at this point, has lost crewmates, has went through that really harrowing ordeal with Usopp. I think during Sabayoti. Yeah, I just really love that scene, and that's really good advice for Luffy, because he's going to continue to lose people that are very close to him. And I really want him to be able to not have that happen, and be able to weather those occurrences better, because it's really hard to see him break down and just cry and scream in tears. It is always like so harrowing to see. But then the next episode in Postwar, we get Rayleigh showing up on the island of Woman, and he's looking for Luffy. And we get a really fun monologue with Boa, where she's talking about Luffy and being in love with him. And Luffy and Jinbei just suddenly run into Rayleigh, and everyone is so excited. And then from there, we get a lot of catch-up with all of the rest of the crew. We see Usopp, and he's really big and fat now on the food island, which was a lot of fun to see. We see Chopper reacting to the news of Ace's death, which was really hard to see, because first thing he thinks about as a doctor is, how is Luffy? How is he taking this? Then we go to Gloomland, where Mihawk is there, and we see Zoro talking with him, and they're talking about these human drills, which are these like apes that know how to mimic humans. Like, it's really weird. It was really cool as well. But we also cut to Nami, and she's at Wetheria, one of the Sky Islands, and she's trapped just like Captain Kirk is in the original pilot of Star Trek. The original series, she's just kind of sitting in a glass like prison cell while everyone's looking at her. It just really reminded me of Star Trek. Made me laugh. But she breaks down, and this entire island is like inhabited by wizards, which I love as a fantasy guy. And while everyone's crying and realizing that like she's crying because everyone cares about Nami, she takes that advantage and leaves and escapes. And then we go to the land where Vegapunk was born, and I still haven't seen Vegapunk on screen, but we have some lore drops about this future land of Baltimore with a D, and Frankie is on this island. Frankie's, the android that we meet. He's awesome. And he discovers Vegapunk's idea stash and says it's centuries away from being able to be utilized fully of all the technologies that he is researching. And then Frankie presses the self-destruct button and it causes the great embarrass man or something like that. And I wasn't exactly sure what that meant, but that was a really funny moment of Frankie being like, wow, look at all this technology he was thinking up. Self-destruct. That was really exciting and funny. But the next character that we catch up is Brook, who is obviously one of my favorites as a skeleton musician. And he taunts prisoners, but is then bound up by them. And that's... so we then meet with Nico Robin, and she's talking about how she was actually saved from the revolutionary army that is headed up by Ivankov. And they rescued her from slavery, and their leader is actually Dragon. And she declines a meeting with Dragon, which is really interesting. Why does Dragon want to talk to her? Does he know that she is allied with his son? We don't know. Very interesting. But then we go back to Kamabaka Island, where Sanji is getting interrogated by Ivankov, which was a lot of fun. I love Sanji, and I love Ivankov. So it was really fun to see them both talking with each other. But we get a small little scene with Trafalgar Law, and he's telling his crew just to wait a few days to go into the New World. We see the Winter Island home base of Kaido. I don't know if it's the exact home base of him, but it's one of them. We see Blackbeard and San Juan Wolf there burning on a random burning island. Blackbeard has kidnapped this woman named Jewelry Bonnie, and she kicks Blackbeard in the face because he's trying to exchange her for a really nice marine ship. So the Marines are on the way, and that's really bad. But Chopper is on an island full of giant creatures, and there's a really cool library where he decides to sort of plant himself for the next few years and learn everything he can about medicine, which is very good for a doctor to know all his medicines. But then we go back to Makabaka Drag Island, I think is the full name, I wrote it down. And Sanji and Ivankov are eating the dishes of aggression. And Sanji is like, oh my god, this is the best food I've ever eaten, please teach me. And so that's his goal the next 2 years. And then we meet with Nami again, and she's learning about the roving island of Wetheria. And it starts raining lightning, and it rains other weather phenomenon, which I don't really know exactly what that means, but I'm sure we'll get more once we come back from the time skip. But then we see Brook, and he's all caged up again playing his guitar. And this is sort of the last looks that we get of them before the time skip. So we see Brook, and he's still caged up playing his guitar. Nico Robin is leaving the Great Bridge island that she was at to go to Baltigo, even though Dragon wants to meet her. So she's still rejecting that. At Baltimore, where Frankie was, the Marines are investigating why Dr. Vegapunk's lab exploded, and they end up finding a second lab, and it's actually Frankie who's the one who exploded them, and he's living in the second lab, so that's really funny. And he wants to discover as many inventions as possible in order to help the ship. So I'm very happy to see that Frankie is the one who's going to be upgrading the ship. I hope he does really good inventions and technologies and cannons and fun nets. I don't know. I have no creativity when it comes to pirate ship customizations, but I hope that is really cool. But the final thing that I have here is that Zoro asked Mihawk to train him for the next 2 years because Luffy has put out a newspaper article or something, and he's basically saying like, hey, instead of reuniting together in the next 3 days, how about we take 2 years off and just focus on ourselves and get more powerful, because the new world is very powerful, everyone there is very strong, and no one in the crew has any confidence that they will be able to make it in the new world. So this 2-year time skip is very needed. And Luffy is officially training with Rayleigh, which I was very happy to see. I love Rayleigh. He has so much information about the world and about lore. And Rayleigh just gives us the entire details about everything with the Haki. And talks about all 3 of them, the Conquerors, the Armorers, and another one that I forgot to write down. But it was really interesting because we've seen Haki be used a lot throughout the series, but it ends up that we had no idea what it even was. And Rayleigh points out that Enel from Skypiea was using this thing called Mantra, which is exactly the same thing as Haki. So that was really fun. And before we get the closing credits, we have the intro song We Are playing. And we see each character in like basically a highlight reel of the entire arc up to this point. And it's playing that original intro song from the early arcs. And it's so fun. It was so fun to get that. And then the final closing caption is like, to the new world. And I just love that. I can't wait to go to the new world. I don't know what's there. I know it's going to be a whole lot of powerful monsters, powerful people, powerful emperors. I'm happy to be done with the Marines, seems like. The Marines are a villain force I just don't care about as a whole, but individually I really like them. Sengoku, Garp, Aokiji is pretty awesome, but not many others I like. So I think that's it for this arc, post-war. And in order to catch up by the end of next month, I think I need to finish an arc a week at this point. And there's a lot of arcs. Wano, I believe, is the longest arc of the entire series, and that's 47 episodes. Because I know I have about 207 episodes left of One Piece. So if I can just do 20 a week, like, maximum, I think I'll be able to catch up. So, my God, this has been such a journey, but I don't know. I probably will not take a break because I need to catch up, but thank you all so much for watching if you're still here. It's been so much fun talking about all this, but man, I wish there was more people to talk to with this series, like on YouTube. And so if there's anyone, if you're even still listening and there's anyone you want me to talk with, get them in contact with me, or just tell me who they are and I will reach out to them, because there's so much to talk about with this series and I'm just barely scratching the surface. So thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.